Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
With a chance to put the Mavericks on skates, is an injury going to hit the brakes for the Celtics? Just how worried should we be about Kristaps Porzingis? Also, don't count out the Oilers just yet. And some are saying Brock Purdy is better than Justin Herbert.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The Boston Celtics up 2-0 as we head to Game 3, but Kristaps Porzingis hobbled off the floor in Game 2, and now we found out has what is being called a rare injury to his lower leg. Now, neither John Corrales, host of Locked On Celtics, nor I are doctors, and neither of us stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night. But we're still going to try and figure out what this means here, John, with the understanding that we don't know right now how much this is going to limit Kristaps. He says he's going to try and play. That seems like that's the plan for now. How much, how effective does Boston need Kristaps to be in Game 3 to keep this lead going?
Look, he doesn't have to be exactly what he's been, but if he's significantly less than that, then he shouldn't play. There's a line where if you're going to go out there and be a lot less and not be able to get over to protect the rim, or maybe not get to the spots that you can get to offensively and not navigate the offense the way you should, then there's a possibility that if he's that limited, he's going to be hurting the offense. So they have to make sure that not only are they protecting his long-term health, they have to make sure that he's able to do at least some of the stuff that he's been able to do, which has been very important for the Celtics. And if he's not, then maybe just going without him would be better than going with 50% of him.
Yeah, and the long-term part of this, I think, is a crucial piece too, because Boston has to balance that. And this is an unenviable position for any team to be in, to go, look, we may risk our best chance at a title to say, hey, we could win, 2 or 3 of these things if Kristaps stays healthy. We're up 2-0. Is it really worth it to try and do this now? If you're the Celtics, how do you try to balance those things?
This is so weird because this is truly a rare injury. It's been described to me as a reverse Kurt Schilling, where there's a tendon in there that's kind of flopping over a bone, which sounds painful as all hell. Yeah. And
are there bloody socks? Do we know?
There may be another bloody sock situation here. And it's hard to tell, right? Because there are some doctors that I've seen say, like, yeah, nowadays you can kind of tape that in a way where you can actually prevent it from doing the painful thing, and he'll be okay. Either way, he's probably going to need surgery after the season to correct it for real. But can he get through what he needs to get through over the next few days? It's possible. But the issue is he's dealing with that right calf strain. And even though this left ankle injury is not directly related to the right calf strain, the compensation put on that leg can certainly be seen as a factor. And now that's going to be the more damaged leg. Is the right leg going to try to pick up some of the slack? And that's already got an injury there. That's the balance between the long term and the short term, and where the Celtics have to be really careful, because I think they can still win this series. They're up 2-0. Just got to win 2 out of the next 4 or next 5. Don't risk the potential to win next year and the year after for something that maybe you can accomplish right now without him.
And this, unfortunately, John, this was the fear when they acquired Kristaps Porzingis, who's been excellent for them, right? I mean, has taken them to a whole other level. But this was the fear when he was acquired, that he would not be not just 100% healthy, but healthy at all in these biggest moments.
Yeah. And, it's a weird thing. And maybe this is what happens when you are injury prone. But look, he came back and he helped win them those 2 games. And he was part of a bigger machine. And this is the
awesome
encouraging thing for Boston. He was great in game one. He has played a big part. The Celtics have gotten here kind of without him because he got hurt in the middle of that first series. So yeah, it's disappointing, but he's done so much over the course of the regular season to get them to the 64 wins. And the few games that he's played for Boston, he was impactful against Miami in breaking a zone. And that helped them get far enough where Miami just didn't have anything at the end. He helped them win 2 games against Dallas. Dallas is worn down, and the Celtics have a blueprint here for beating the Mavericks. And that can be done without Porzingis. It's just going to be harder to do without Porzingis. So no, he hasn't played enough, I guess, for some people, but I think he's also, in a weird way, he has played enough because the 2 series that he's been in, he's done enough to get Boston to a spot where they can take it the rest of the way.
Yeah, the 2 big offseason acquisitions, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, they are not up 2-0 in the finals without either one of those guys. So pretty strong statement from Brad Stevens for this Celtics team. They got to win 2 more, and we'll see if they can do it. John, thanks. Stay up to date all year on the Boston Celtics by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Celtics on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, count the Oilers out of the Stanley Cup at your own peril. Before we get to that, Joe Burrow is progressing in his return to the field. Summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, the Stanley Cup Finals, and more. You could bet on it all at FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet everything from the Finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park. The favorite to win the U.S. Open will not surprise you. FanDuel has Scottie Scheffler plus 280 to win the tournament. He was about a 4-1 favorite when he won the Masters, I believe. What may surprise you is that no other golfer has odds shorter than 10-1. Only 2, Rory McIlroy and Xander Schauffele, have odds at 10-1. Everyone else longer than them. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Not all pain can be brushed off. That was Joe Burrow's message after going through a brutal offseason of recovery.
Whenever you fight through adversity and come out on the other side, it definitely gives you a feeling of invincibility at times, but obviously you know that that is not the case. And so it's always a balancing act. And that's what this offseason has been about for me. It's not pushing through some things that I've pushed through in the past. I've always prided myself on my mental toughness to be able to push through pain and push through those injuries. And so that's kind of been my growth this offseason is taking a step back and understanding my value to the organization and to the team and the value of the work that I've put in for the last 10 years and relying on that as opposed to relying on my work week in and week out, day to day.
Meanwhile, in Pittsburgh, Russell Wilson is feeling good after his first minicamp practice with the Steelers.
I think the best part, too, the energy is super high. I mean, the way we work, it's so competitive. Every rep feels like a playoff rep. Every rep feels like how it should. Coach Tomlin does a great job of that, and us players, we're working, and the leadership on this team is phenomenal.
Over on the diamond, Paul Skeens got another start and dominated, but he was matched pitch for pitch by Miles Mikolas as the Pirates and Cardinals scratched and clawed for any kind of success at the plate.
It was the longest outing and the most pitches thrown for Paul Skeens on Tuesday night as the Pittsburgh Pirates defeated the St. Louis Cardinals 2-1. It took 9 innings for all those runs to be scored. It got down to a crazy finish with a catcher's interference call, and David Bednar shut the door. But the story, once again, was Paul Skeens. Exactly a month ago to the day, Paul Skeens debuted against the Chicago Cubs in style, and all he's done so far in the major leagues is pitch in style. He did so once again against the St. Louis Cardinals, 6 1/3 innings, 8 strikeouts, no earned runs. His ERA now sits at a 2.30, and Paul Skeens is here, folks, and he is here to make your favorite hitters look silly. That's what he's been doing here over for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and Ethan Smith, will be talking about it tomorrow.
And Zach Wheeler made short work of the Red Sox lineup en route to a Phillies win.
First, the celebration, just enjoying this victory stateside for your Phillies. Bryson Stott coming up with a couple of hits in today's game as well. That was great to see. The defense backing up their starting pitching as well today. Alec Boehm had a couple of good plays there at third. You had Garrett Stubbs, like I said, behind the plate, come up with a big strike him out, throw him out, strike him out, courtesy of Zach Wheeler, throw him out, courtesy of a right-on-the-money throw from Garrett Stubbs behind the plate. That was fantastic. And then also tonight, Jose Alvarado coming out. I mean, Matt Strom going out there and doing what Matt Strom does, and quite frankly, what Matt Strom should have done a little earlier in that final game there in London town against the Mets. But for whatever reason, Tinker Topper decided to tinker the wrong way in that game. But Strom went out there and did what he was supposed to do tonight, and Jose Alvarado, he allowed a base runner, a couple of pitches out of the zone, but still got his 12th save of the season.
The Edmonton Oilers are down 2-0 to the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup final. Even with the best player in the game on their side, some are wondering if this is over for the Oilers. As our Locked On Oilers host, Nick Zararis, points out, the Oilers have been counted out once this year already.
There's only so much I'm going to be able to say to you to provide comfort. What I will say is this. The Oilers were in dead last at one point this season, and they rallied back and played at like a 670 win percentage once Chris Knobloch was appointed head coach. They trailed 3-2 against Vancouver, and they came back to win that series, and they got a win from Calvin freaking Pickard. They went into that Dallas series as reasonable underdogs, and Chris Knobloch pushed the right buttons. You got Broberg in for Desharnais, and the Oilers made it happen. Got back to the Stanley Cup final for the first time in 18 years. This is adversity. This is being in the fire. You know, I forget what the name of the cornerman is, but there's this old clip. It's from the early 2000s where he's in the corner with his fighter in boxing, and he's got his hands on the boxer's shoulders and he's pressing his forehead against his. And he says, "We are firemen. We train for this. We are running through the fire and we are ready. You do all that work. You do all that preparation, because when it comes down to it, you know you're going to have to go somewhere that you're uncomfortable to get what you want. We are firemen. The fire's coming. What are we going to do about it?" It's that straightforward. If you're the Oilers, you're in the fire right now. Are you going to get out, or is the building going to burn down and collapse on you? I don't think the Oilers have played terribly in this series. They were not good, but it's not like they were thoroughly embarrassed tonight. Maybe some of their actions, you know, if you want to take a little bit more of a neutral perspective, it's not a great look to be trailing in a game, trailing in a series, and you slash guys, you throw a hit that's a little questionable. I know you don't care about that. You care about the Oilers winning game 3 and going on to win this series. What I will tell you, the last time a team came back from 2-0 down in the Stanley Cup final and went on to win the Stanley Cup was the Boston Bruins. That was 2011. That's a very different NHL. But that series turned when it got back to Boston. Vancouver had home ice in that series. They played really well in those first 2 games. Yes, there was an overtime game in there. Yes, there was a 1-0 win in there. They played well in those games. Then the Canucks went back to Boston and lost games 3 and 4 by a combined goal total of 12-1. I'm not saying the Oilers are going to hang a 12 spot on the Panthers. If they do that, I will eat my hat. Not this one, because I like this Guardians hat. I got this when I went to Cleveland a couple of years ago. But I will eat a hat. I will cut it up with a knife and fork and do my best to consume some cardboard, because 12-1 on aggregate over 2 games against maybe the best defensive team in the league is crazy. 12-1, you got it. I will eat a hat for 12-1. The Oilers are absolutely in this series. Their star players have yet to really make a big presence. They've yet to really make an impact. We need to see what the deal is with Draisaitl. I don't imagine there will be supplemental discipline, because I'm sure Gary's going to lean on them to not make one of the stars of the series sit out a game. I do think Fogle probably gets suspended, so we'll see who draws back in from the bottom half of the lineup that's alternated in and out. I really want to see the Oilers put together a consistent effort.
Stay up to date on the Edmonton Oilers by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Oilers on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, Brock Purdy is rated how high? It's that time of the offseason where we rank NFL players, and the quarterback rankings, boy, they are something. According to Locked On NFL hosts Kate and Michelle Majuk, Brock Purdy is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL.
I'm going to keep rolling. I want to get to the juicy stuff. I want to get to Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, here at number 5 on your quarterback rankings. I talked about one of the league's most efficient passing quarterbacks, Tua Tagovailoa, earlier, and you had him at number 13. So I think there are going to be some folks very upset to see Brock Purdy, who, nobody's going to argue. He has been one of the most proficient and efficient passers here in the NFL. I think people are going to have some question marks here from you about what is the difference between Brock Purdy at 5 and Tua Tagovailoa at 13.
Yeah, and I kind of brought that up during the Tua section, right? Like Tua is throwing to wide open people at a much higher rate than Purdy has. Tua is just throwing incredibly fast from the snap to just getting it out. That's his job. Like, read what it is. We're going to have our guy open and you do that. Brock Purdy's much more of a playmaker. He's able to make plays out when things break down. And he's just much more clutch as well. And that's a lot of big reasons why, right? I take Purdy's stats into consideration a little bit more, but also Purdy's stats just kind of destroy Tua's. I get Tua's look good, but Purdy's just also destroy them in efficiency ways. But like, there's so many things I can say about Purdy, but let's just start off the top here. I'll try to keep this short. He has the highest passer rating as a starter over the first 2 NFL seasons in NFL history. The top 4, it goes Purdy, then Mahomes, then Kurt Warner, then Dan Marino.
Those are some pretty good quarterbacks.
Yeah, and I get it. Purdy has weapons. I get it. But Mahomes also had Andy Reid as a coach, and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Kurt Warner also had the greatest show on turf. Dan Marino was playing with good people. Like, people play with good players, and there's not always the Purdys. It's the top guy in NFL history over 2 seasons. He has an 8-point higher regular season passer rating than any other quarterback since 2022. No one's close to him. And it's also in any situation you want to bring up. He ranks first in passer rating. It's when using play action, he ranks first. When not using play action, he ranks first. When taking the hike, what am I saying here? Out of shotgun formation, he ranks first. On downfield pass attempts, he ranks first. First man coverage, he ranks first. Against the blitz, he ranks first. Not against the blitz, he ranks first. With no pressure, he ranks first. Outside the tackle box, when throwing a ball out, when running outside the tackle box, he ranks first. Like, every situation you can think of, this dude is killing it. And you might say it's because his guys are doing it after the catch. He ranks middle of the league in yards that have come, his passing yards that have come from yards after the catch. He's middle of the league. Well, by the way, Mahomes ranks first, and we don't use that against him. And I won't use it against him. I have him at number 1. The Purdy hate is absurd. He's freaking amazing. He's only going to get better. He has started really 1 full season, and then he had the 5 games the year before. He's only going to get better. I love this dude. I love him.
Here's the thing that I don't understand about this. Not just watch the games, because everyone can come away confirming their priors when you watch. That's just how this works. That's how sports works. But when Jimmy Garoppolo was one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league, because we watched, we went, well, he's not as good as those numbers. We know that. We watch. We see how much the offense does the work. We see how much Deebo Samuel and George Kittle does the work. We see how much the running game and the play action does the work. So what I find so bizarre is we're sitting here with Brock Purdy, and yet I'm hearing, oh, this is different because he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. Did you watch Jimmy Garoppolo last year? Jimmy Garoppolo was not anything that special in New England either. Though he was playing with a team that, by the way, Tom Brady had no problem winning with. In fact, if you go back from 2017 to 2022, so when Jimmy Garoppolo was the starter for the 49ers, by EPA per play, there were only 2 quarterbacks who were more efficient, more productive than Jimmy Garoppolo. Patrick Mahomes and Drew Brees. Aaron Rodgers won 2 MVPs in that same span. He was not as efficient as Jimmy Garoppolo. Lamar Jackson won an MVP in that span. He was not as efficient as Jimmy Garoppolo. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Tom Brady, none of them were as efficient as Jimmy Garoppolo. And yet we know because we watched, he was not better than those guys. So we have to grade Brock Purdy on a curve. It's the Shanahan curve. It's the Avengers curve. It's that he's playing with Brandon Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams and George Kittle, and Kyle Shanahan is calling the plays. It is a cheat code. We've seen that. This quickness to say, oh, this is so different, and different to the point that the guy who was the 3rd most efficient quarterback in the league over a 6-year stretch that included virtuoso quarterback play around the league, that this is somehow new and different because he can run a little bit more than Jimmy G. I don't understand. And finally, the GOAT will not be allowed to compete. No, I'm not talking about Caitlin Clark or the Olympic team. Joey Chestnut will not be eating hot dogs at the nation's famous hot dog eating contest this year. Chestnut agreed to a sponsorship deal that will not allow him to compete. He signed a deal with Impossible Foods, as in the meat substitute. Major League Eating event organizer George Say said of the news, it would be like Michael Jordan saying to Nike, I'm going to represent Adidas too. First of all, is it? And second, maybe they should just get Caitlin Clark. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, can the Mavericks get a game back at home? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.